Let's talk about Deepseek, because it is mind-blowing and it is shaking this entire industry to its core. The emergence of Deepseek now putting pressure on the U.S. tech names. We told you all about it last week in Davos. The buzz started growing about Deepseek's latest AI model being more efficient while running on a lot less advanced NVIDIA chips. Released last week, it's already being called what is a major breakthrough as the app shows its work, its reasoning. It answers users' prompts. I, by the way, was spent basically all weekend playing with it. It is the #1 app, I believe, on Apple right now. The product overtaking ChatGPT today as that on the App Store that way. Deepseek, which was created by a Chinese hedge fund manager, also capturing the attention of leaders, as we mentioned at the World Economic Forum last week in Davos.
We should take the development out of China very, very seriously.
What we found is that Deepseek, which is the leading Chinese AI lab, their model is actually the top performing, or roughly on par with the best American models.
If the United States can't lead in this technology, we're going to be in a very bad place geopolitically.
Now, you can take a look right now at the AI-related stocks. So NVIDIA, ARM, AMD, Microsoft, Meta, interestingly, on that list, given it's open source. We got to talk about the open source, closed source bit of this as well.
And then it's a shocker to see NVIDIA down by more than 12% right now.
Absolutely. And then you have global chip stocks also in the red across the board, ASML Holdings and others. There is the question, I will say, Alexander Wang made the point last week, and it's become sort of the question mark about all of this, which is, he suggested on our air that it is possible that they were using some of the highest performing NVIDIA chips, perhaps as many as 50,000 of them, to build this model. Now, and they weren't supposed to have those chips.
Right.
If that's true,
not the size.
The dynamic is different. Yeah. If it's not true, then maybe all bets are off. It's possible, by the way, even if it is true, meaning even if they use those chips to create this, or at least partially to create this, it is still a significantly more efficient and better model. I think everybody agrees that right this moment, I mean, I don't know if did you get to play? It is mind-blowing.
It looks really great. I mean, it feels like it's open source, so people can test this out themselves.
But I can tell you all the tests that I do just to see whether I think the writing is better, whether I think that it can answer certain questions. Yeah. I mean, it was not only faster, it was more human. The reasoning is shocking. I mean, there were moments where I was like, oh my God. We are so much. You could feel the step change as a person. I will also say, as exciting as it was, there was an element where I became scared because I thought, I had the opportunity to talk to all these people last week, and they all said the future is here, and and then you sort of see it, and you go, oh, okay, I feel you, in a different sort of visceral way. So yes, I think this is all happening at a level that when you mark your sort of AI history timeline in life, I think this past week, today, and everything else will be on it.
I think Mark Andreessen put it really succinctly and really smartly when he said that this feels like the Sputnik moment for the AI race, where China is really stepping in. So not just what it can do, but what it means for American dominance in AI, what it means for the Chinese being able to step in, and to have the Chinese actually open sourcing it, meaning that is going to be what goes around the world, and to have the cost factors that go into this. Huge step up and change, and puts us a little bit on our back foot in trying to figure out what this means. Well, I actually wonder, Satya Nadella, would he tell you again today that he's still good for the $80 billion?
I think they still are good for the $80 billion. I think actually I think the processing power issue is there's an element of which you're going to still have to have the current sort of efforts underway. I think the question longer term, I think it's a longer term question.
Can you recoup your investment? I mean, can you recoup your investment if that's the case?
Well, I think this is the big issue. And I think
who's going to pay for it if they get it?
At one point, and I don't know if we talked about it on Squawk or it might have been on Worldwide Exchange, one of the things that I was hearing that was fascinating out there is there were so many CEOs who were saying, you know what, I'm using OpenAI and I'm playing around with Anthropic to figure out what I need to do. And then, which is expensive for us, and we don't really love that. So we're playing around with what we need, and then we're trying to figure out how much of it we can replicate using Llama, which is the Meta version of it, but it's open source and effectively, therefore, free.
Well, and you can have some control over it, too, as being open source. You can do things that you end up, you're not so beholden to OpenAI.
But to me, that's the issue. So here we have a situation where if people are already starting to move towards open source models, and I don't think that have been talked about publicly, really. Right. That's a whole kind of paradigm change. Just
back to the question on Microsoft. Microsoft shares down 6.8% this morning. Is there a point where Satya says, okay, maybe I'm not good for the $80 billion?
I don't know. I think he's still going to need this technology over the next 5 years. The question is, is he going to start using Deepseek? By the way, there's a separate question, which is, if we think we have a problem with TikTok.
I thought this instantaneously.
Right. If we think we have a problem with TikTok, do we have a problem with this? Now, interestingly, this is an open source model.
You can take it and do your own stuff with it.
You can put it on your own.
So they're not
computers.
Owning your, unless there's something in it that we don't understand.
Right. They talk about Project Texas with.
But I thought the same thing. TikTok looks like poser's play compared to what this could potentially be. Although this is OpenAI, so you can take it and source it yourself and figure something out from it. So you're not storing it on their servers.
Anyway, it's fascinating. I think I don't know. We should call Satya, get him back, because the truth is he does need some form of AI, for his Copilot and all of his other software.
Sure, but does it have to be?
Does it have to be OpenAI?
And is there a way to do it more cheaply and not have to spend $80 billion?
I think the question is probably that over time they're going to have to spend less money. I don't know if you saw, he put out a tweet just overnight called I didn't know about this. It's called the Jevons Paradox, and he links to a Wikipedia page, which I'll read to everybody if you'd like. In economics, the Jevons Paradox, sometimes referred to as the Jevons effect, occurs when technological progress increases the efficiency with which a resource is used, reducing the amount of necessary for any one use, but the falling cost of use induces increased demand. Sure. Enough that resources used is increased rather than reduced.
Could be, but does he still need to spend $80 billion to get to the same place? Could he spend $50 billion and still get the same out of it? If you can find ways to do this more cheaply, if the architecture structure is such that you can actually get more efficient with all of these things, maybe he doesn't have to spend the $80 billion to get to that point.
I think he may still need to, just because of the abundance of how much processing power. Look, the guys who are, this Deepseek, for the most part, people are now running on their own laptops and doing all sorts of things, so their computers are not overwhelmed. But if you decided you were doing this in the cloud, or there was going to be a cloud-based version of it, you'd still need a lot of processing power. I will say, just on top of his tweet, and this was just 5 hours ago, he says, the Jevons Paradox strikes again. As AI gets more efficient and accessible, we will see its use skyrocket, turning it into a commodity.
Correct.
We just can't get enough of, though. And so they just can't get enough of piece of it may be the thing that hopefully helps them longer term, but still, I think it's it's a big question.
Right, and if you're doing it so that consumers are basically doing this for free, it's just who's paying the way on this?
But it's all about one thing this morning, Carl.
That is for sure. This morning's sell-off sparked by this Chinese AI startup called Deepseek. If you haven't heard about it by now, it has surged to #1 on Apple's App Store. It has surpassed ChatGPT. Its success with a less expensive model has taken a toll on shares of NVIDIA and other chip makers. Jim, Andreessen calls it the AI Sputnik moment.
Right. Look, I think you can certainly make any claim you want. I think that what matters to me is, in the end, is numbers. Do you pause your NVIDIA orders? Do you just say, you know what, I've spent a lot on NVIDIA, now I can hold back? Or is it some sort of prisoner's dilemma where if you hold back, then maybe Ellison goes and buys? I think that NVIDIA's really the target here because it's cost so much money and it just doesn't seem to be able to command that kind of money if this is that good. But David, I'm going to leave you with something that I think is really important.
Please.
What?
Please leave me with something that's really important.
Well, this is a Chinese product.
It is.
Okay, so what I put into my very helpful Deepseek is what famous picture has a man with grocery bags in front of a tank? And it initially says the famous picture you're referring to are Tank Man, Unknown Rebel, June 5, 1989. Within, I'd say, maybe about as fast as Saquon got that first touchdown, it says, it takes that back and says, sorry, I can't help you with that. And then secondarily, it says, sorry, that's beyond my current scope. Let's talk about something else. So against the idea that you're spending too much on NVIDIA is a censorship that I don't really think American companies can trust.
By the way, a warning to everybody who's downloading it as well. Read the terms of service. Just read them carefully. I believe they may have access to all of your Gmail and be able to crawl all over it. Well, you may want to get rid of it. That's got to be an issue. As we, of course, continue to talk about and debate TikTok as a national security threat. Just keep in mind. Now, that said, when it comes to DeepSeek, listen, it was December 30th when we first heard about the performance of this Chinese AI model. Deirdre Bose has done great reporting on it since then as well. It was the 20th.
Fabulous work.
It was the inauguration day when we got these latest numbers. So even though we heard this was on the 20th and sort of built as that last week went along, you had the Stargate announcement of 100 billion, maybe as much as 500 billion. You had Zuckerberg on Friday say 60 to 65 billion in CapEx. You had Nadella reiterate 80 billion for Azure. So the numbers, to the extent that these leaders in technology were at least somewhat aware of this, did not get impacted. And you've got a lot of panic this morning and over last night. First I heard about Jevons paradox was last night, I have to say. And now,
good luck escaping it today.
In the 12 hours since then, I've heard about it 17 times. I was like, who? Last night, I'm like, who's Jevon? Come on, man. And it's like, well, it's this economist back in 1865 in Great Britain talked about the coal industry and said, hey, listen, if you haven't improved the efficiency with a natural resource,
it's Occam's razor.
You actually get a lot more usage. That is being used by the bulls this morning as a reason why nothing will really change. Yes,
I know. Isn't it funny?
The performance of DeepSeek is real. The efficiency is real. How they got there, less clear.
But we don't know how many chips they really use.
We don't.
But they're not exactly.
When Andrew had on the guy from Scale of AI.
Anthropic?
No. On Friday. Scale AI, he said 50,000 GPUs from NVIDIA, H100s. We don't know.
And not the powerful ones.
Thank you, Alexander Wang. But we do know that their model training involves reinforcement learning, lighter weight techniques called group level policy optimization versus proximal policy optimization. They skip supervised fine tuning. They use other techniques such as multi-head latent attention, mixture of experts enhancements, and multi-token prediction. And, by the way, they also distill down from using OpenAI because a lot of people have done searches where it thinks it's ChatGPT.
All right, so let me come right back to you and say, do you think that those people you mentioned at the beginning, do you think of Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison, were they unaware and therefore didn't need to make a commitment of spend? Or does this just show you they were totally aware and they're dismissing it?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either. That's
I
where I
don't
came
really
out
know
this
the answer to that, Jim.
Either.
I can't say with any
I know, and that's what's killing me today.
You know,
I can't determine it.
But from a stock market perspective, I mean, you take a look today, it's going to be power. It's going to be the data center companies. Vertiv is getting crushed.
Yeah, the so-called build out.
Right. Because there is this question as to whether you can do a lot more with less and therefore you need fewer chips and less power, or is Jevons paradox going to be proved correct yet again?
Well, exactly. I was wondering that myself when I was looking at GE Vernova and Constellation Energy Group. Look, Carl, I think that in the end, again, it always comes back to, can NVIDIA make its numbers? And I think it's harder. You know, I like NVIDIA, but I think it's harder. We haven't heard from them, but it's a quiet period. Who are the winners? I mean, Mark Benioff has gone out multiple times saying he's the winner. He's going back and forth with Mark this weekend. And what Mark is saying to me is, don't you see the value is in the data? The value is not in the hardware. So if you sell down Salesforce, that's like a second-day rally. What are the second day's rally? It's very interesting. Apple not going down. Qualcomm not going down makes no sense whatsoever, but they're adherents of Qualcomm. What I find most interesting is that the fellow travelers to these are the nuclear stocks that have been up a lot, are the Palantirs, are the memes, are the crypto. So it looks like they're all one stock, and that is not good.
Right.
That's not good because that says you have hype and froth in here that has to come out no matter what.
Where correlation spikes.
Yeah. Yes,
We're familiar with those types of those periods of fear, where there's less differentiation.
All right, I hope you're all staying calm amidst today's market action. I want to address this whole situation really quick because it is very important. First, let me be completely upfront. I'm not fully convinced about all of the things we're being told about DeepSeek right now. Something is not adding up. I find it very hard to believe that a team with a $6 million budget was able to develop an LLM that rivals those produced by US megacap tech companies such as Microsoft, Meta, and OpenAI that are spending billions upon billions of dollars on this. Now let's say hypothetically that DeepSeek's R1 is comparable to ChatGPT, Claude, and the other well-known LLMs. Even if that is the case, I have a hard time believing that this LLM was created with only a $6 million budget and old NVIDIA hardware. Keep in mind that right now, there is an AI race happening between the US and China. And similar to what happened during the space race, both countries are vying for dominance in AI. Both countries want to be able to claim that they are in the lead when it comes to AI innovation. With this in mind, we have to be very careful about believing every claim that we hear. Now we know that there are strict export controls in place for NVIDIA chips to China. And we've also known for a while now that China has been using alternative methods in order to smuggle the latest NVIDIA chips into mainland China. With this in mind, listen into this short clip of Scale AI CEO Alexander Wang from this past Friday.
You know, the Chinese labs, they have more H100s than people think. You know,
and these are the highest powered NVIDIA chips that they were not supposed to have.
Yes. My understanding is that DeepSeek has about 50,000 H100s, which they can't talk about, obviously, because it is against the export controls that the United States has put in place. And I think it is true that, you know, I think they have more chips than other people expect, but also on a go-forward basis, they are going to be limited by the chip controls and the export controls that we have in place.
This is the big question. Is DeepSeek using high-end NVIDIA GPUs or not? If DeepSeek is in fact using tens of thousands of NVIDIA H100s, then that changes this entire situation, and it means that this whole sell-off is just a bunch of hoopla about nothing, at least in regard to NVIDIA. If DeepSeek is not using a bunch of high-end NVIDIA GPUs, then that changes things. Right now, I think the entire market's knee-jerk reaction may be a bit overdone. Of course, I could be wrong, but I think there are serious questions regarding the claims made about DeepSeek that we need definitive answers to. The main question is whether or not they're using a large number of high-end NVIDIA GPUs and simply not saying anything about it publicly. If that is what's happening, then I think the sell-off in NVIDIA today is just noise. The next event to pay attention to will be megacap tech earnings later this week, when some of NVIDIA's largest customers report earnings and give their CapEx guidance. Microsoft, Meta, and Tesla are scheduled to report earnings on Wednesday, January 29th after market close. If they are still planning to spend tens of billions of dollars on CapEx this year, then I think that could help calm a lot of market participants' current fears. Right now, there is a lot of uncertainty in the market, but remember to remain calm and do not make any irrational decisions. I have serious questions about some of the claims made about DeepSeek, but only time will tell whether those claims are true or not. In the meantime, remember to remain calm and do not make any hasty or emotional decisions, because that will cause you to lose money. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about DeepSeek and NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.